after World War II. Henry Ford was getting old. As a matter of fact, they had to bring Henry Ford II out of the Navy to help run the company, and he brought in the whiz kids, these guys like the best and the brightest from government work to help turn around Ford. And the shoebox Ford saved the company. Up to that point, the company was in such disarray, they actually paid their bills by weighing the invoices. Can you imagine that, Joe?
They paid their bills by weighing the invoices.
Yeah, they would take a stack of invoices and they would weigh them, and they said, okay, we're going to pay so much on each invoice. Boy, I tell you what, save the company. The rest is history.
Wow. Hey, I gotta point out something to Tom Ander at the Antique Car Museum at Grovewood Village in Asheville, North Carolina. Now, go on my timeline, watch the video. Tom did a great job talking about the cars. If you're looking for a beautiful landscaped area, I mean, there's a hotel there that was built in 1912. Looked like something from The Shining. You know, it was really, yeah. Oh, and the neighborhood, wow. all the houses that surround this property are built like in Frank Lloyd Wright, 1905, 1910. Really nice. And the museum's nice. A lot of great. They have a 57 Cadillac Fleet Eldorado, the one with the bar.
Yeah, gorgeous car. Those were hand-built cars.
Those cars. The car that they have in the museum is worth $250,000.
Oh, I believe it. That's
so,
absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
Check this out, folks. It's if you're doing a road trip and you're in the western part of North Carolina, definitely worth the stopover. Really, really nice. So what do we got going?
Well, I tell you what, they had the Singapore. Not Singapore. The car show, big car show in New York, and then they had the car show in China, the Shanghai car show. Get that right, Shanghai. And so now, I guess China and New York are kind of competing with each other on cars, and U.S.-bound Chinese cars are going to be sponsored by Daimler, which is part of Mercedes-Benz, and then a company called Greeley. Now, a lot of people don't know what Greeley is, but Greeley owns Volvo. So we've already got, I guess, some Chinese-backed cars here in the United States. Who knew that Volvo was owned by a Chinese Greeley company?
Nothing's made where it should be made. you know, American cars are in Mexico. We have, and then there was that big stink I remember in the 70s where people were buying Chevys and they were finding out that they were made in Canada.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's and that got a lot of people upset.
Oh, it did. Well, not only that, about that same time, I guess sometime in the 70s, the various General Motors divisions used to manufacture their own engines. And then they started finding out that you were getting a Chevy engine in an Oldsmobile and an Oldsmobile engine in a Cadillac. Boy, that really caused a big stink. So now, who knows? Everything is different. All I know is that the biggest car market in the world is China. They sell 23 million cars there. And get this, about 2% of the market is electric cars. Yet every car company seems to be focused on making electric cars. Yet it's still only 2% of the total car sales that are in the world. So a lot of different things are happening right now in the car business.
It's not the way it used to be. The one of the things I really liked was when I was traveling out. I was on vacation last week with my family, and we were in the area called Cherokee,
mm-hmm.
and you're taking these side roads to get out to the KOA site we were at, and you see these cars and they're just broken down in a field. And I'm like, wow, I'm like my buddy Kayla. It's because it's like out in Montana. I think they grow them.
That's what's really exciting, because you look at the car, and of course back in the 50s and 60s, you could probably identify every car. Today there's so many brands you can't, but that was exciting. Maybe there's a treasure out there. Maybe there's a special car that somebody's looking for, and it's out in the field and nobody. It's like a treasure hunt, Joe.
Well, I saw some great pickup trucks. Saw a shoebox Ford, Thunderbirds. And then you see the wrecks from the 80s and things like that. And they're just sitting out there. And I was visiting my daughter, and she's over next town over called Leland. And their neighbor has a 1968 Ford pickup truck. and the guy's he won't sell it. He's just using it to store junk.
Yeah, I think these kind of cars become part of the family, and they don't really come on the open market until somebody passes away. And there's so many stories about Corvettes and collector cars, and they have to wait for that generation to pass away, and then finally the widow passes on, and then the cars come for sale in the store last week. And I asked the widow to send me the information. She said her husband passed away about 6 months ago, and he's got some very, very special 57 Chevrolet automobiles in his garage. She
Really?
said, cars. I said, well, send me pictures. We'll tell our listeners about the cars because those are still very collectible. So any of you widows out there or folks that know of any special cars, send us a note. We'd love to talk about them.
You know those widows, they're just waiting. Oh,
But they're not car guys.
My husband's still sitting in the car. Fred's been gone since 1973. But just joking.
So we've got some big news today. We're getting a new sponsor coming on board, a company called Papa Shine, and Joe wants to talk about them a little bit. Their products are evidently absolutely spectacular, so we can't wait to talk more about them in the upcoming shows.
I was really impressed when I interviewed this young fella, beautiful Corvette. I think it was a 2018. And when I had gone to the show, it was just it was a beautiful sunny day.
Yep.
Well, here in North Carolina, and probably the same thing in your neighborhood. You leave for a car show in the morning, and then a couple hours later, here come the gray clouds. Well, this car was beaming, and this wasn't staged or anything. And I'm asking him the typical JoepeP behind the scenes questions. And I said, well, how long does it take for you to detail your car? And he says 6 hours to get ready for a car show. And I go, what products do you use? And I'm ready to hear,
Sure.
brand A, brand B, and brand
Stuff
C.
you find in the the various car
Car stuff.
Parts,
So
car stuff.
it's then he says it's Papa Shine, and I, honest to God, never heard of it, but this car was just beaming, and I go, man, I got to put this on my tractor. It's like really make it look nice.
Right.
But the thing was, it was overcast, but this car was just outstanding. And then I see Papa Shine shared our video post,
Mm-hmm.
so it was like, score. Let's see if we can get this guy going.
Well, Greg is the owner. We had a great conversation today, so we're going to be talking a lot more about it, telling you all the details about this wonderful product, and we're going to tell you where it's going to be available for sale because this is a super, super product. We can't wait to start talking about it.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. And, the thing is that I feel, we talk it up on our show, on radio, worldwide internet, Facebook Live, and what do you call it, YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
I says we can reach places where people who can't come when you're at an event, and you're down in Myrtle Beach and you hear and someone in Oklahoma sees this. It's like, hey, I got to pick up this product.
Well, not only that, it is going to be available at Manifest Design at 3065 Howard Avenue in Myrtle Beach, and it'll be down there around the Cobra. We'll put some of that on the Cobra and really spiff it up.
Spiff it up.
Yeah, and it's going to be really exciting. So that's going to be a new product for Manifest Design, who, by the way, has all kinds of new things coming in, all kinds of stuff for guys. Have propellers and airplanes and watches, and you ladies that want custom furniture made in North Carolina, very reasonable prices and great lead times. Manifest Design, 910-515-1333. Hey, it's a destination.
For your eyeballs.
Yeah, that's right, and it's just in a gorgeous place in
Makes you
Market
want to
Commons.
cry.
Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting. It's I tell you what, it's absolutely fascinating to watch the fellas walk by and do a 180-degree turn to come in and look at that Cobra, which is getting all kinds of.
It's a stunning car.
It is, and it's done by Eddie's Hot Rod and Collision, 910-833-5473, and he's at 5009 Carolina Beach Road here in Wilmington. He did the car. And I tell you what, kudos to Eddie. If you've got a car that needs to be repainted, or it's got dents or dings that need to be fixed, or a total restoration job, Eddie's the guy to go see. And by the way, Eddie's doing some movie projects. So if you've got some 30s cars, 20s and 30s cars that you'd like to be in a movie, give Eddie a call because he's looking for those. And it's 910-833-5473. We always say, Joe, if your car's been in a movie, all of a sudden that becomes a very special car because every car has
like
a
a
story.
home movie?
No, not a home, like a movie.
Okay. Well, with us on the phone right now is a new segment of the show. It's Kayla's In Search of Classic Cars with Zen. And on the phone with us is Kayla Rain Dancer, who's been with Every Car Has a Story on and off since way back in 2017. And today, Kayla's going to be talking about her 1949 shoebox Ford. Hi,
Ooh.
Kayla. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Very good. There. So, did you have to run down to the general store so that Ethel can connect you to the telephone to talk with us today?
Yes.
It is. I see. Wow. Well, out in Montana, it's they still think that Herbert Hoover's president. So it's
That's not fair.
This is really great. No,
That's not fair. Well, tell
That
us
wouldn't
tell us
surprise
about
me.
the car. Is this a 2-door or a 4-door? Is it convertible, a coupe? Tell us about the car.
It's a two-door sedan. The coupe tends to have more of a bubble top and a longer trunk look.
Right.
But this is two-door sedan, so definitely more of the shoebox look
Right.
than I say the coupe has.
And is it what kind of an engine does it have?
It doesn't have an engine.
Okay.
When it checked the VIN, so it had I want to say a V6, so it was not a V8. It wasn't the more powerful engine at the time would have been a flathead.
Right. It'd been a flathead. Are you going to try to put a flathead Ford back in it, or are you going to do something else with it?
I am still going back and forth because I had thought about putting a bigger engine in there, but the problem with that is I would have to go and start modifying the floorboards to
Right.
make a bigger transmission and to fit the bigger engine in there because it is a small space. And I'm kind of thinking also just to save time and money just to put a flathead V8 in it.
Yeah, and of course, when people come and look and want to buy these cars, they want as original as they can. They call them OEM, original equipment manufacturer type products in the car. So yeah, it'd be great to put a flathead in that thing. That'd be just fantastic. Now, how much of a restoration job on this are you going to do?
I was looking at it. The floorboards are pretty decent shape, so I'd probably just get it running.
Yeah.
Get the engine, get it running, and then decide from there how much more I want to do. I'm not too sure about that yet. Because I like paint and color. I know there's a patina look going on.
Right, absolutely.
And everybody's into the patina.
Yep.
I'm not really for the patina look so much. I like my paint, so.
No, I agree. But patina is a very big part now of collector cars to keep them as original as possible. Looking at this car, looks like it's going to need a new interior, and you're going to put an engine in it, so I'm almost wondering whether you should do a complete restore. That's a great-looking car, by the way.
So, Kayla, a question for you. And, of course, this new segment, Kayla's in search of classic cars with Zen. It's were you and your boyfriend driving out in the fields of Montana and you just saw this car out in the field, or was it at an auction, or what made you consider this?
It was at an auction, and surprisingly, nobody bid on it, and it was going to get scrapped. And thankfully, the people that owned the auction and still own the junkyard sold it to me, so it wouldn't get scrapped. And you could still go out there today and buy an old car from them. There's over 1,000 cars.
But what made you stop? I mean, to me, it's you see something, and I mean, you're always out and about. You're always traveling, doing road trips. You're going to car shows when the seasons are getting ready. You're looking. You're always looking through cars that are for sale, and then you see this, and it's like, what made this car so special? That Zen,
I had seen one actually a week before, and I want to say the body of that one was in rough shape than the one I bought. And I'm a big Ford fan, and I've seen movies and I've seen people hot rod these cars, and they just have a great look. It's just typical, I want to say, early 50s hot rod kind of screams at me when I see these cars. And so I just I don't know, it just kind of clicks, especially with the shape of the body is actually really straight. The floorboards aren't rusted, which is very rare around here.
Yeah. And the car looks really straight. I mean, there's no damage. It looks like a great car. And it's pretty amazing you found that car because so many of those were turned into hot rods during the later 50s and 60s. So car's probably got a great story behind it.
No.
Yeah, I think somebody did at one time was going to hot rod it just from looked like some customization work going on the fenders, which is easy fix. But besides that, there really isn't a whole lot. And the engine's missing, which probably makes me think that somebody had taken out to work on it.
Where do you think you can find a Ford Flathead V8, or not a V8, but a Ford Flathead 8? Where do you think you can find one? Are they pretty much available?
I've seen them pop on. Usually I look on Craigslist.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stick around on Facebook. I have a lot of people I'm friends with on Facebook that work on those types of engines. I probably could contact them and ask. Somebody knows, there knows somebody that knows somebody usually.
So they're still out there then?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Now, I got a question. Now, this may be sacrilegious, but okay. So, can I ask how much you bought that car for? Give or take.
Oh,
off the top of
give
your
or
head.
take. Cheap.
Well, but that's great because one of our car gurus was on our past programs. He said, listen, it's not how much you sell a car for, it's how much you buy it for, because that then gives you the room really to get that thing restored properly and that you don't come up upside down and you restore a beautiful car.
Well, this is the sacrilegious, I can't talk. My teeth are slipping and I don't wear dentures. That's the scary part. So here's the question of the day. Could you make money taking parts off the car, the chrome? Now, I saw there's this one company, and they sell grills for the 49 shoebox, and it's $1,600. Of course, everything is all chromed, and it's all brand new. But could you make more money off of the car taking off, say, the grills and rims and door handles and things like that? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. I could probably make more money selling as a whole.
Yeah. Well, people that do any kind of chroming now, that's kind of a not a hazardous type business, but it's not environmentally free, any kind of galvanizing or chroming. So is there a chroming company in your area up there near Montana where you could send it out and have the parts redone? Because that's a big part of these collector cars is that the bumpers have to be re-chromed and all the bits and pieces. And it's not cheap.
Yeah, I know it's not cheap. Not by me. It's kind of where I live. It's growing, but it's still kind of a small, I want to say, business especially for cars. I would have to send that off to Spokane, which is not very far. I mean, far enough, but not super far from where I live.
But when you look at these cars, particularly the mid 50 cars, 56, 57, when the cars got really big and the big Cadillacs. And you look at redoing one of those, and then you look at the amount of chrome and the weight of the bumpers and the amount of chrome in the cars, that's going to be a very, very, very big part of the cost. With that shoebox Ford that you've got, it shouldn't be too bad because there are not too many chrome bits on it. But if you've got a good company that does chroming, that's a huge asset.
Absolutely. Well, Kayla, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And please tell all your pals out there I said hello. But, the great thing is that Kayla is a woman that loves cars. And there's a lot of other women out there that love the same thing, and we'd love to hear from them, too.
Yeah, and we're preserving a part of American history. That 49 Ford's got a great story. And as they say, don't crush them. Let's restore them.
Restore them. Kayla, thanks so much. Anything for next week? You have another car in mind for a car with Zen?
54 Cadillac.
54 Cadillac, which I saw in the video you just did. So just sneaking part of it. 54, beautiful car. Gotta love those Dagmars. Anyway, Kayla. Now I'm blushing. Anyway. I can't talk. I'm flabbergasted. But anyway, Kayla, in search of classic cars with Zen, is going to be a regular here on Every Car Has a Story. So if you have someone that's thinking about heading out to a junkyard and buying an old machine, Kayla's going to tell you all about it. Thanks so much, Kayla. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kayla. Great
You're
to talk to
welcome.
you.
Have a good day.
You too, kid.
Do we have time for a Stump Joe question?
Stump Joe. Of course we have Stump
All
Joe.
right. Well, this question kind of revolves around a company called Studebaker, which was formed in actually were formed in 1861. They made wagons for the Union Army, but they started making cars right after the turn of the century in 1911. And they have a wonderful background. STP was a spinoff of Studebaker. Some people call that Standard Tested Products, which is not true, although Studebaker owns that logo. But the question is this. The leading car, the top-of-the-line car for Studebaker was called the President. And these cars were driven by executive leaders, presidents of companies. They were driven by generals in World War II. What was the name of the model just below the President? What was that model called? A Studebaker what?
Stooge. No. Sorry. I seen a president, and I can't remember what concourse I was at, but it was just stunning. It was black, and it had metallic silver, and it was just beautiful. I think it was like a 38 or a 39.
Yeah.
And to think that this car company within 20 years went out of business.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everybody in our listening audience and our viewing audience, I'm stumped on Studebaker.
Well, it's a great question because the answer is it was called a Studebaker Dictator.
A dictator.
Dictator. Now you can imagine.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute now. No,
That's what I was going to say. So you can imagine how well that went over right around World War II. They had to drop that logo. What are you driving? I'm driving a Dictator.
I'm driving.
So there you go. It's all about marketing.
And I bet you people would just stop short. Yeah, I'm driving a Dick. I'll have a tater, please.
So there you go.
A
Little information from the past.
It took off. That actually took off.
Well, it did fine up until World War II, where we started going after all the dictators of the world.
Dictator.
Yeah, can you imagine?
What in God's name were they thinking of? You know,
I don't know. At different times, names of the cars that made them successful and names of the cars that didn't make them successful. I think we could do a whole program on that because there were some real doozies out there. I'll tell you.
And that's why the name of our show is Every Car Has a Story. I'm JoepeP with Dusty.
Yep.
Coming up for our Facebook and YouTube audience, we're going to have a woman a journalist that's going to be learning how to drive a Model T Ford. So that'll be good. So stick around, our radio audience. Stick around for local news and weather. And you can hear Nick, our producer, sing There's No Business Like Show Business.
I test drive cars for a living. I've driven fast cars, fancy cars, and a few not so fancy cars. But I've never had the chance to drive the automobile that started it all, the Model T Ford. So when I was in Detroit for the auto show, I took a side trip to visit the Henry Ford Museum for a test drive of a different kind.
Are you ready for a driving lesson?
Yes.
Okay, this is like nothing you've ever driven before. You're going to see 3 pedals on the floor. Your right pedal is your brake. The middle pedal is reverse.
Yep.
The left pedal is a clutch. Now they call it a clutch, but it doesn't work like a standard clutch that we use today. I'm going to show you how this works. I have a parking brake over here.
Where's the gas pedal?
There is no gas pedal.
Okay.
That's a great question. You're saying, how do I make it go? You see this right here? This is your accelerator.
Wow.
So it has a hand throttle.
There's a reason the old timers call it the Model T dance. Getting the car to move smoothly where you want it to go is a complicated process.
So you're going to
give it a
push
little gas.
you got to push your left pedal to the floor and give it gas. Nice. All right, now let your gas up and let your left foot up.
Whoa.
Now you're in second gear.
Okay.
You're doing wonderful, and I have to tell you something. You're the first person I've ever driven with for the very first time that did not stall the car when they first. Yes.
gosh.
I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
The Model T has an inline 4-cylinder engine with only 20 horsepower. It could go up to 45 miles per hour if you're on a slight downhill with the wind behind you. The normal speed for a horse and buggy is 5 to 8 miles per hour, so this was definitely an improvement. Oh, and here's one more idiosyncrasy with the Model T. The 10-gallon fuel tank doesn't have a fuel gauge on the dash, so you kind of just have to guess how far you've gone and assume you get about 20 miles to the gallon, which, it should be noted, is better gas mileage than many cars on the road today. Here's the biggest surprise. The Model T is actually pretty rugged. You don't have to be precious with it. It did great in the snow. Model Ts were actually made to be able to cross farms and mountains in inclement weather. You just had to be sure to carry extra blankets when you did. It was 12 degrees the day of my driving lesson, and I was definitely wishing the heating technology was a little more advanced. I'm pretty sure that back in the day, the cold didn't dampen too many spirits. The quiet clicking sound the engine makes when the car runs, the wide leg space, the comfortable leather seats, and the beautiful interior brass details all make for a smooth, fun ride. It's no surprise that Henry Ford became so successful with his new creation. This was the car that really started it all.
Hey, we're back, part 2. You're listening to Every Car Has a Story. Hi, I'm JoepeP. With me is my trusty sidekick, Dusty. We're broadcasting live from the Big Talker 106.7 FM radio studios in beautiful Wilmington, North Carolina. Hey, looking for a vacation spot? Come on down. We got the beaches. We got the Civil War battlefields. We got the Revolutionary War battlefields. We got the Dusty and Joe battlefields. Come on down. But listen, we got a nice text from Mark Stone from across the pond. And Mark writes, it says, hello from England. I present the highest rated motoring-based radio show over here with a lot of U.S.-based listeners. So it's great to hear a motoring show broadcast out of America. Mark writes, don't forget the famous Datsun Cedric. I never heard. Come and get. I could see the Queen. Mark, no offense, okay?
Oh,
you could do an imitation of our president, please. Anyway, can you imagine the Queen of England? I drive a Datsun Cedric. Shouldn't you?
Oh, my goodness gracious.
I never heard. Have you ever heard of the Cedric?
I'm
going to
never
look
heard
it up.
I can tell you this. When I was overseas in the Pacific during Vietnam, And I bought a Toyota, but it was called a Toyota Pet. It wasn't even called Toyota. So I think a lot of these companies, they have to change names to the cars to become more Americanized or more westernized. And we get names that don't really mean anything, but people relate to them. I guess as long as you don't call it a dictator, you're probably going to be okay.
You know, it's or the higher. Oh, I drive a higher, but actually, I'm not even going to get into that thing.
But I tell you, the car business, historical cars, great stories. We're going back to Studebaker. Studebaker actually survived for a long time after they actually stopped making cars. They had Studebaker Worthington. Remember Worthington air compressors? Paxton superchargers was owned by Studebaker. So they did billions of dollars even when they stopped making cars. So I guess there is life after you shut the production lines down. Of course, the greatest one is STP, which is just a great name.
And that's part of what, Studebaker?
Yeah, it was owned by Studebaker. Actually, about 10 years ago, they were sold to another company. So I guess the investments of Studebakers finally were diversified. But the names carry on even after the Studebaker line is gone. And some of these Studebaker cars, I have to tell you, were just real performance cars, and the lines were absolutely gorgeous. I would love to have a supercharged Golden Hawk Studebaker, and they are very, very pricey. They cost
nice.
$80,000-$90,000.
Very nice. Well, coming up on the second half, we have Jesse Wild live from Schwab's Pharmacy in Hollywood, California. And someone told me he was spotted looking at the comic book rack. And Jesse, put that Archie comic down, please. Gives me nightmares. Anyway, and then after that, we have automotive spy photographer Brenda Priddy, Priddy. And she's going to be talking about her automotive art, her work out in the field, getting run off the road by Mercedes-Benz, and, of course, trips to Cuba, which she has beautiful photographs of, and how the United States and Cuba, they're not seeing eye to eye right now. So at any time, they can just pull the plug and woke you up on that one. Wow. And no more trips to Cuba. So on the phone right now is our pal Jesse. How you doing there, Jess?
Good afternoon to all you folks. Dusty, how you doing? You too, Joe?
Doing good. Love to hear from you. Doing all right out there on the left coast?
We're doing okay on the left coast. We're working feverishly. Whew. On the 76 Ranchero is just about ready for paint this weekend.
Oh, wow.
And then we're putting in a siren and all. It's going to look kind of like a police car.
Oh.
That's what's going to happen. Okay?
Really?
Oh, wow.
That's the news here. I just thought I'd let you know. And we're going to use it at the beginning of the show for our entry to the next episode, whichever one that may be. In this case, it'll be the first one. And we're going to have a car chase, so to speak, similar to Dukes of Hazzard, you might say.
Don't wreck the car.
So I don't know what they're going to have Uncle Jesse do. I have an idea, but I can't really talk about it.
Well,
right now.
way back then, the sirens were these great big affairs mounted on the fender. Is that what this is going to be like? You're going to have a siren on the outside of the car?
I don't know where it's going to be. I asked them where it was going to be, and then they gave me this dialogue and look, and I thought, I don't want to know where it's going to be. I'll stop talking.
Jesse, you want a siren that the sirens we grew up with as a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, when you heard those, it was like, oh my God, there's something big coming down the road.
Right.
Now it's like you don't know if it's an ambulance or a police car or a fire truck.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
true.
You get one of those, man, they'll move out of the way.
I was going to ask you if maybe you could come over here and kind of ride on the fender, and you can do the sound effect.
Well, I was thinking, just get me a big megaphone, like the old Warner Brothers thing, like rickety rack, rickety rack. There you go.
Whoa.
All right there.
Boy.
All right there, Jesse. You pull over right now, and let's see your license and registration. And if you have a $5 you can put underneath your license, that would suit me fine in the children. Only kidding.
I don't have a $5.
Only kidding.
I don't have a $5, but How about a box of donuts?
A box of donuts.
Oh boy.
Wow, you see that?
You know, I don't know if I would have
No,
said that.
that's it. Well, Jesse, looks like you'll have to get our board game. Every car has a story, and we have like little statuettes of all the people that are regulars on our show. And and we have the Jesse Wild collector set now available at Walgreens and CVS. So anyway, Jesse, thanks so much. Let's have
I have one question.
Yes,
Sure.
What's that?
I have one question. Is your action figure going to be sitting, laying down, or standing?
Good
We'll talk about it next time.
Next
Thank
week.
you very
Next
much.
week. Yep. Next week. I'll have to give that some thought. Thanks so much, Jesse
Okay.
Wild. All righty. So while Jesse's saying goodbye to us and Nick is starting to phone Brenda, and maybe we could put that theme music on. Here we go. Brenda Priddy. 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 That's right. Automotive spy photographer. Can you imagine going out into the desert, what she was describing last time she was on? Out in the desert, waiting for these camouflage cars to come, trying to run you over to take photographs of the new model year. I think that's pretty wild.
Got to be a great story. I wonder if she's seen the new rear-engine Corvette circling around out there. We have to ask her. I know that
she's on the phone right now. So, hi Brenda, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing terrific. How are you?
Very
We're
good.
great.
There, we got that James Bond music there for your being an automotive spy, and it sounds like so secretive, and while you're driving around in your white Volvo, being undercover, which I think,
Right.
yeah.
that's pretty undercover.
Let's get a big arrow. Here I am. Shh.
Yeah.
And it's a whole 85 horsepower, too.
Oh wow! We can chase them down the road.
Yeah.
Well, who's sneaking around these days trying to hide their new cars?
A lot of times they show the cars themselves, like Corvette, they just kind of showed the Corvette in camouflage, but GM did it, and Land Rover does it, and so it's kind of, it's not as much fun as it used to be because the car companies do it themselves.
Oh golly, shoot!
Well,
I know.
That's no
you gotta
fun.
You got to make it more
That's no
exciting for
fun.
them. I mean, are the Germans
I
still
know.
trying to run you off the road, or is that stopped now?
They would if they had the chance. I really don't do that much spy stuff anymore.
Oh,
So yeah, I do more fine art photography, and
which is beautiful. Yeah, you
well,
do.
thank you. And I take people on trips to Cuba.
I
And
want to
that's-
talk to you about that. I was reading not too long ago that there's now a Cuban cruise, which I guess you can get on a cruise ship, and they go to all the Cuban ports. Now, that doesn't sound as exciting as going to Cuba with you, but tell us how you do it, because we understand that it's not so easy to get to Cuba anymore.
Well, it's not as easy as it was, and it may stop completely.
Mm-hmm.
There was some talk last week, a government statement saying that they were going to end trips like we do, but with no dates. But it's terrific. We go as like an educational group, and it truly is educational. We stay in people's homes, kind of a Cuban style B&B.
Yeah.
And they're just fantastic trips. We're just keeping our fingers crossed because, like I said, this can end any day now.
Well, we could have a Brenda Priddy cruise, and you go ahead and book it, and then we all get on the cruise ship with you, and then we go port to port, and you know all the folks there, so that'd be a lot of fun.
That's true too, except that would end if the other program ended. It will all end.
That would all end at the same time. Oh, God.
Everything.
Yeah.
Because
So-
that's
we're
always
just
been on my
kind of-
bucket list to go to Cuba. I love the food. I love the people. I'd love to see the cars.
You were over there?
No, but I've been to Miami.
Well, yeah, that's
That's about as close as you're going to get,
Get a canoe.
unless you're going to take a canoe.
nothing.
Find like 5 or 6 friends, and then we'll do a trip.
I would
Because that's
love
all
that.
we need is like 6 people or 8 people. We don't take any groups larger than 10.
All right.
So it's a real kind of intimate group.
Yes.
You know, you really get to know the people and
this
and stuff
really
like
wouldn't
that.
be any much more cost than, say, booking a cruise to go in the Mediterranean. I've done that a number of times, and I'm tired of seeing all the same old faces down there. I'd love to go to Cuba. Yeah,
Well, the Cuba trips are more.
they are.
Even the cruise to Cuba are more. Yeah, it's because of all the requirements that we have to meet. And we have to have a licensed, an agency that's licensed to do Cuba. So it's more than, you know, a cruise. But it's just an amazing experience. You know, you really get the feel for the country and the people. And the cars, of course.
Well, of course. Absolutely.
So what, just a ballpark number for our listeners, you get let's say you have a group of 8, okay? And so for per person or a couple, what would the whole package include? You book it,
well,
now you're going to Cuba.
Not including the airfare because people come from all over.
Right.
And we stay in probably 3 cities usually, and it's usually maybe a 9-day trip roughly.
Right.
And ballpark, it averages $3,500 a person, and it give or take a few $100s.
Wow.
But it includes probably everything except maybe 1 or 2 dinners, which are very inexpensive, and any anything extra that you might want to do, and it probably doesn't include like gratuities for the B&Bs, and those are just a few dollars a day.
Right.
So
but it includes just about everything.
So the ship comes into port, and everybody's all excited. They got the cameras are all set. There's always somebody in the group that's like, Harvey, did you charge your camera? Did you? Bernice, I told you. It's not a camera. It's a cell phone camera. I don't need film anymore. So after all that's done, right? So you have your leader's hat on, and it's like, okay, now today we're what port would you normally come into?
Well, we don't do the ships. We do it by air.
Okay, airfare. Okay.
So will you fly into Havana? Right into Havana?
Yeah. So we fly either from usually Miami or Fort Lauderdale. It's about $100 roughly.
Sure.
And we usually, I like landing in Havana just because the airlines haven't been too consistent in the sense of, one day they'll fly into 5 cities and then, oops, we're not making money. We're only going to fly into 2 cities next month.
Wow.
So if you fly into Havana, you're safe. And another thing we do is it's not always possible, but we try to avoid being in places on the same days of the cruise ships.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, a few thousand people getting off a ship versus 8 or 10 of us, and we'd just rather be the 8 or 10 of us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they just, the cruise ships, they swarm everything, or else they stay in one area. You really don't get a chance to see the people. You really don't get a chance to see what it's really like to be in Cuba.
Yeah. It's like going to New York City.
Exactly.
Everybody wants to go to Times Square.
Yeah.
And
you have no idea what like a Cuban home is. I mean, we stay in Cuban homes, and we eat in very small family-owned restaurants.
Oh, that'd be great.
But for Americans, it's actually illegal to stay in the majority of hotels and eat in the majority of restaurants in Cuba.
It is? Why?
It is because those businesses are basically, the money goes to a division of the Cuban military.
Yeah.
Oh.
You're supporting that, so they discourage that. Well, let's move on from that. Let's talk about the cars there.
Oh my God!
And we've seen pictures of these cars. Are there lots of them, or is it just a few? And the second question I have is, who restores these cars? Do they have exceptional body shops? Where do they get the parts? Lots of questions about that.
Yeah, well, there are about 60,000 old American cars.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing. And I was going to say you see more in the country, but actually in the country, a lot of people don't have cars. They ride horseback, and they have horses and, carry stuff that way. but there are about 60,000 American cars, and then you have, a couple Swedish cars, lots of Russian cars, a few English cars, some German cars, and it's amazing. And as for the parts, there are two basic ways that they do it. Either they make their own parts. Well, three ways. Okay, they make parts. They take parts from other cars and tractors and machinery. Or a very expensive route for the people is that they buy parts from the U.S. But to do that, they can't just call a supplier in the U.S. and they can't put it on a credit card because they don't have credit cards. And so they
wow, that's amazing.
They have like a mule. Yeah, they send a message to somebody in the U.S. and say, these are the parts that we need.
Yeah.
And that person will buy the parts and then for a fee, deliver them, bring them to Cuba. So it's very expensive, because there's so much added on. And an average Cuban makes about $22 a month. And that includes doctors and other professionals. That's what they make. So it's very expensive. And for that reason, a lot of professionals are leaving their profession and working in the service industry, like a taxi driver or at a hotel, because they get tips, and
that makes all the
supports
difference.
their family.
Well, I think one of the great things would be to go to a car restoration shop. Maybe you already have that on the agenda, and watch them redo these cars, which has got to be absolutely fascinating, particularly when they're fabricating parts. That's almost a lost art.
Yeah, we go to one of the top shops in Cuba, and as a matter of fact, the owner has been to the U.S. He's been invited to, I think the Amelia Island Concours. He's gone there as a guest. Wow. When Obama was president, Obama visited him, and I think Michelle rode in one of his cars.
Wow.
So it's just fascinating to meet the people and hear their stories.
Well, the Cubans are wonderful people. They really are. And a little-known fact, after the Spanish-American War, Cuba petitioned to become a U.S. state. And
wow.
Never happened. And that would have been a wonderful addition to this country, because the people are absolutely wonderful there.
Hey, Brenda, I got a great idea. Now, if something happens with the United States and Cuba, I'll get you in contact with Kayla Raindancer, who lives out in Montana. They got more old cars out there that you could shake a stick at. And she's starting this new segment on the show. And right now she has like around 13 project cars. And the first one she started with is a 49 shoebox Ford. But
I love those.
They got all these old auctions out there and ancient junkyards out there. And she lives out in the Northwest Territory of Montana. But just to give it something for thought. But, you think about it's like what was going on in Cuba. I can remember seeing, now I'm 64, there was a special with Ernie Kovacs, who was a big hit star comedian in the United States. Yeah. And he did a trip to Cuba, and of course it was all televised. And I can only remember bits and pieces, and then of course Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz.
He was married to Edie Adams, and she did the car commercials. Remember, she used to say, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?"
Oh, Desi Arnaz?
No, Ernie Kovacs.
Oh, Ernie Kovacs.
Yeah,
yes.
Ernie Kovacs. Yeah.
I thought Lucy's husband.
No.
But anyway, but this was a big thing. Or if you see the old movies from the 30s, it's like, oh, we're flying down to Cuba, to Havana.
Oh,
and that was like the big thing. My father, he went into the Navy in 1946, and for a while he was stationed in Guantanamo. And Dad always told me, he says, but this was when it was really nice. And I would have loved to seen the old Cuba, versus now. Now, didn't you tell me several years ago you were taking photographs of like then and now, like of buildings, hotels, and things like that?
Well, I didn't, but I have a friend that went on one of my trips, and his parents went to Cuba for their honeymoon. I'm thinking late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it had to be like the 40s, early 40s.
Okay, sure.
And they went to Cuba on their honeymoon, and he had the original movies and
Wow.
still photos.
Wow.
And so we printed out the pictures, and then we went to those places. And nothing has changed except the way
Wow.
people dress. You know, when people went to Cuba in the 40s, they dressed up like you would see in the movies.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
and
Absolutely.
men in suits and hats and women in dresses. You know, and now it's a very poor country, and you know, you wear shorts and t-shirts.
Right. Like everybody
so
else.
I didn't do it, but we compared his pictures, and so we did his pictures. We did then and now, but for him personally.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the most spectacular Cuban car that you saw on your many visits, or cars? Give me a couple of your favorites.
We have, what do we got left for Brenda? That's it? Okay, we got like a minute left, so. Oh,
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything is spectacular.
Oh, everything, really? You didn't
And-
find
and
one
there's-
particular car that you really caught your eye?
There are some that we found an early Corvette
Oh, wow.
that was in the middle of a restoration,
Oh.
and it was the first year Corvette. And the second time we went and looked for it, it was already back on the road, so we couldn't take
Oh,
more
my
pictures.
gosh, that would have been
But we
really
did
something.
take pictures at the shop, yeah. And we only found it because our taxi driver knew about it, and he said, "Come with us." And he knocked on the person's door and said, "You know, these people want to see the cars in your garage."
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I would have been drooling. I guess I would have had my top 10 list. I would love to have seen a Cadillac 4950 Cadillac convertible. That would have been right up there at the very top. Maybe some early Chrysler convertibles.
Well, they're looking for the Chrysler Corporation's executive's car that they think is still around.
Still over there?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I heard that, and I can remember years ago, there were these men were escaping Cuba. This was like, oh God, late '80s, and they were in the DeSoto, and they hooked up a motorboat engine. So they were crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm thinking that would be great if these guys can make it. They could build boat cars. Why not?
Yeah, but it's sad. You know, what we don't hear is how many Cubans end up perishing when they're crossing like that, and that's really sad.
Yeah, I was on a cruise many years ago, and as the cruise ship had to stop in the middle of the night and pick some folks up from Cuba.
Wow.
So,
Well,
but
Brenda,
it's on my bucket list to get there. So we need to talk
we'll have to
some
do
more.
it. That's right. Hey, Brenda.
Definitely.
How about a shout out to your website and how people can get in contact with you? We got like around 30 seconds left.
Okay. Well, the best way to get contact with me is email me at cubawithbrendapretty@gmail.com. And the best way to get to see my pictures is on Facebook at Brenda Pretty and Company. And you can ask questions there also, and I'll get back to you.
Well, Brenda, thank you so very much.
It's always a pleasure.
From the bottom of my oil pan. Thanks so much, kid.
My pleasure. Can't wait to do it again.
Brenda Pretty.
Thank you, Brenda.
And I hear the theme song going. Brenda's going back to our trailer. So this is JoepeP.
And Dusty.
And you're listening to Every Car Has a Story. Heard and seen on Facebook Live, YouTube, Worldwide Internet Radio, and local FM radio. Saying happy motoring and keep your hands at 10 and 2.